Hello everyone, this is Venus Brown here with another reaction to The Crown. This is Season 5, Episode 6, called Ipatiev House. Now, if I recall correctly, this is an episode where some really bad stuff happens and there's actually an entire family that is assassinated. I'm pretty sure that this is the episode that covers that, so let's get to it. London, 1917. Interesting car.
Asked to give you this letter from Downing Street, sir.
So has the palace not changed since 1917?
The government is willing to send a ship to bring the Romanovs to safety here in England.
Their rescue. Show it to your mother. Her judgment is unfailingly better than mine.
Везут в более безопасное место.
Не оставит нас в беде, не бросит нас на произвол судьбы.
Ты думаешь, он спасет?
Собирайтесь. Собирайтесь, мы уезжаем. Мы уезжаем. Мы уезжаем. Мы готовы.
Фотограф скоро зайдет. Долго не задержимся.
Oh my god.
Он постановил вас расстрелять. Что?
Ну давай уже!
The fact that they gave them false hope wasn't bad enough. They freaking assassinate this entire family, including the children. Horrible fucking people. Ugh. And here it is. The intro for The Crown, Season 5. If you like this content, you can go ahead and click that thumbs up button. If you like, you can click the bell to subscribe. And if you click all, you'll get notifications whenever new content is loaded. You can share it or even save it to watch later if you like. That's totally up to you. It's no one else's decision, just yours. And now, here it comes. The Crown. Let's get back to it.
Yeltsin, the first elected president of Russia and leader of the popular resistance.
First Western leader to visit Moscow since the coup.
He never wavered, and the people love him for it. That said, I'm not certain I've seen him sober yet.
But I thought you'd spent several days in his company.
Or at least because I think I may have been. Table slamming and the profanity. He's straightforward and likable. And
This is my background.
With the idea of meeting me, apparently.
That's nice.
Is that all you have to say?
Sorry, I'm late, that's all.
What for now?
Flight to Munich, a wildlife fund event in Brazil, then Alaska, with a couple of carriage driving competitions too.
Did you ever get tired?
Only by sitting still. We're different that way.
More and more different.
Standing on my head in the grass.
And yet still, you persuaded me to pursue carriage driving as a hobby.
There are decades where nothing happens, weeks where decades happen.
Fond of President Yeltsin and is keen that we give him lunch at the palace.
Did a little research on Mr. Yeltsin. Ipatiev House was located.
Go on.
A secret about the Russian people.
Please.
In our heart of hearts.
It's interesting that they have the translators sitting behind them instead of with them at the table eating.
That you would come to Moscow on a state visit. The restoration of democracy.
I'm flattered by your invitation. Where's Tsar Nicholas and his family, murdered by the Bolsheviks? I understand you personally gave the order for that house to be demolished. An act of great disrespect to my family's memory.
The orders came from the very top, from Andropov and Brezhnev themselves.
The Romanovs deserve a decent burial.
Majesty,
Согласен.
I
И
agree.
даю для того, чтобы воздать им
And you have my word
полагающиеся
that I
почести.
will do everything I can to restore their dignity.
Then we can discuss royal visits. За добрые царские времена.
За доброе царское время.
Мановых, вот на этих орлах, а не на Кремле.
What did he say?
Thrilled he is to be here.
Ah, very kind.
Right.
Hours of arriving back in Moscow, President Yeltsin ordered the excavation of the forest near Ipatiev House. Sure enough, they soon found bones. Because of the acid damage, the authentication process has hit something of a dead end, assembling the fragments, grouping them by sex, and cross-referencing with dental records. There's only so much they can do, which is why they have now come to us.
It's interesting, there's this book I'm reading, I think it's called Crossbones. In that, the head character is like, she deals with the bones and trying to figure out who people are. And the main situation in the book is a skeleton that's been so badly deformed and disfigured that it's like incredibly hard to figure everything out. Like, the person was in this very hot room for an extended period of time. Top that off, there was a cat door, so the cats were getting in and out, and the cats were starving. So they started eating this dead body, and just like the whole chemical reaction of everything that was happening, the heat and the cats demolishing everything just made it really, really hard. There's a lot more to the book. It's very interesting, but that's what that reminded me of.
The best way to identify and authenticate the remains is through DNA. And it turns out the only place is here, in England, passes through the maternal line.
Mitochondrial.
You knew that?
Yes.
It can be incredibly useful.
Well, that's a first sample of my blood, which they vacuum sealed in a plastic bag.
Then they have to extract it.
Yeah, to separate it all out, they use this centrifuge.
Oh, yes.
Eventually, all you're left with is this tiny amount of DNA pattern of parallel bands called lanes. Pair these bands with those of the Romanovs.
It was a match?
Yes, with 98.5% certainty. The Romanovs buried with dignity.
All thanks to you.
No, thanks to science.
We really have any choice at all? Is any of it really an accident?
We do.
We're even here.
And some of
in
it
this
is.
Moment. Is it somehow all preordained?
Yeah, your DNA doesn't preordain your choices. It can certainly have influence, but it's not a predetermination of all your
It's had the most
choices.
extraordinary effect on him. Not just the science, but connecting with his own past. Remains seems to have reawakened a fascination in him with all things Russian.
Why? It was German, not Russian.
So is he going to find out about this ancestor actually being responsible for annihilation?
God to help us. Oh, I'm all felt as though we've been growing apart. But this Russian trip feels like a shared adventure. We have so few shared interests these days. What did the window cleaner see in the Kremlin? Nothing. That's the trouble with Iron Curtains.
Russian Orthodox Church. Ooh.
The first democratically elected leader in Russian history.
That is pretty.
Thanks
I like
in
that
part
dress.
To family ties.
And the jewels. Very
There
nice.
has always been a strong bond between our countries.
That's near the last bit. Hold up with the few. Unable to identify two of the bodies.
Thank you. One or two of the bodies still remain unidentified. And Russian Orthodox authorities continue to demand certainty they haven't mistaken the Tsar's body for his cook, for example. This is before we get to infighting between the Russian government and various factions of the Romanov family.
Its first steps after years in captivity and suffering. Bound to be dysfunction.
Disappointing for us, too. I had hoped we would spend more time together on this trip. I've barely seen you.
Well, I've been busy.
Clearly.
Exploring, among other things, the grotesque injustices visited upon my relatives by your relatives. How much I gained, but how much I gave up when I married you.
Such as?
My career, my autonomy, my faith. You might recall I was born Orthodox. One of our many differences. In 47 years of marriage, we might ask ourselves, how are we still alike? We've got different interests, different passions, more energetic,
more restless,
more curious. For calm, for stability, for silence. Not to question, not to probe, not to
provoke.
It has sometimes left me
What?
lonely.
I would say they both feel lonely.
Oh. This disenchantment and loneliness.
Is it not the time and place?
I disagree. It's the perfect time and place.
Seek companionship elsewhere.
Companionship.
Yes.
God's son's wife.
Friendship, Lilibet.
She's half your age.
Her duty, who would never compromise you.
But it does compromise me. Me. As your soulmate.
I'd like you to befriend Penny. I'd like you to be seen with Penny.
You're asking me to legitimize your...
My friendship. My companionship. Yes. You might learn something, too. Romanovs really met their death.
We already know that. They were slaughtered by the Bolsheviks.
You know what? The Bolsheviks pulled their triggers and used their bayonets.
I figured he'd figure that out.
How we walk.
Wonder how this will go.
I'm just a curious student.
That's such an attractive quality.
Curiosity. Your grandparents, George V and Queen Mary, were presented with a clear opportunity to save the Romanovs, but chose not to.
Grandfather would never, could never.
Arrived at breakfast with his parents in 1917, and a letter that had come from the Prime Minister, Lloyd George, into the King's agreement.
What say you, my lord? Do we send the ship?
Might come to regret it.
So there was a rivalry between the two women that went all the way back to their time as young German princesses, but only after Alexandra had first rejected him and married Nikolai Romanov instead. Hence the rivalry. Mary didn't want the prettier, grander Alexandra here in England upstaging her.
It's a nice theory. What I believe to be the real reason Queen Mary didn't want to have Alexandra here in England. My grandmother was far too busy protecting the monarchy against a popular revolt to worry about being looked down upon by Alexandra. Giving asylum to the Romanovs presented a much greater threat. There was widespread opposition to the Tsarina in England, as she was seen as pro-German at the very time we were at war with them. The sovereign cannot show those emotions, so one buries them. That silence becomes part of one's own DNA.
Nora's grave is there, and I need to see that every day. The house needs me to focus on it. He needs me too.
Commitment to your marriage, and to a house that has been so important to me personally. And should they happen to see the Duke of Edinburgh out and about with a beautiful younger companion, it would be an irritation if they felt at liberty to jump to any wrong conclusions. So why don't you come in the car with me to church this Christmas at Sandringham? To nip all that in the bud.
Merry Christmas. Mrs. Timmy, please can you live in Buckingham Palace with me?
Thank you. Now confirmed the final set of remains as Tsar Nicholas. Giddy. President Yeltsin said he hoped a line could be drawn under the matter once and for all, and that friendship and cooperation between our two countries could resume.
Giddiness or tipsiness?
I believe Yeltsin is sincere in his desire for democracy. One just wishes he led with greater authority. Reports out of Russia suggest the landscape is dangerously unstable. And the worry is it will result in the need for hardline leadership again. And we will be back to square one.
Are you ready? Oh, yeah. Who wants a treat? Who wants a treat?
That was The Crown Season 5, Episode 6. You have this devastating past history within both sides of your family. And for the Queen, it turns out to be this story that they believe for the longest time isn't exactly rooted in the truth. while we can put the blame off on one set of entities, sometimes it turns out that the people that are close in our family are more involved in the roots of what took those people down in the first place. And I don't know if the Queen is trying to look at this situation more to feel better about the end results, or if she's really looking at it more because this is her perspective, because she has sat in that position and somewhat understands where this person might have come from. I don't know. I don't know enough about the real story. And even though I did see little bits and pieces of the real story on the internet, I did not go to look at it. Just kind of read the headlines a little bit. The stuff with her marriage, I think many of us look at cheating as like the worst thing that you can do in a marriage. But I think in the case of the Queen and some others that have been in similar situations, when your husband is paying all this attention to somebody else, when they're like giving that much of themselves to that person and their relationship to that person has become important, like almost on a spiritual level, that can feel like a bigger betrayal in some ways, and especially to some people. Things that her husband said to her to indicate that there were issues and challenges with their marriage beyond cheating definitely give her reasons to feel threatened by this relationship. And even if this person is just a friend, that relationship within that friendship can sometimes feel very threatening, especially if he seems to be getting more time and companionship with this outside relationship than he is with his marriage to his wife. Interesting episode. Though I do not know a lot about this outside history, it's still very interesting. Anyway, that's all I got for you now. I'll see you next time.
Until next time, I'll see you when I see you. If you like this video, please click the like button. If you want more content, click subscribe. If you click that little bell and click all, then you'll get more content notifications.